Welcome to part one of the series Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports, Restraint and Seclusion. This module, Policy Requirements and Background, is the first of 5 modules created by the Ohio Department of Education to review requirements of Ohio's standards for the implementation of positive behavior intervention supports and the use of restraint and seclusion. Our focus is on the Positive Behavior Interventions and Support, or PBIS, which ultimately increases positive interactions and impacts the social and academic success of students. These modules contain hyperlinks to resource documents. Please download the PowerPoint to access the links in these slides. You can find this and additional resource documents on the Ohio Department of Education's website at education.ohio.gov by searching for key term PBIS. First, let's quickly look at the background of the Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, Restraint and Seclusion policy in Ohio. First, Governor John Kasich issued an executive order which prohibits the use of prone restraint and requires that state agencies collaboratively work together to create a state policy. In addition to an overarching state policy, state agencies created policies specific to the work that they do. Our topic is the policy as it applies to children in public schools. Many of the underlying principles used in the creation of the policy were guided by a U.S. Department of Education guidance document identifying 15 principles states should consider when implementing policy or guidance. Armed with suggestions and feedback from educators, parents, higher education, state agencies, and community human service agencies, the State Board of Education approved the policy on positive behavior interventions and support and restraint and seclusion in January 2013. The related administrative rules were adopted the following month. Each of these items can be reviewed in detail at the department's website at education.ohio.gov. The policy was created to ensure a safe learning environment for students and adults. It addresses intervention with the knowledge that students are much more successful academically and behaviorally when positive behavior interventions are used. Because positive interventions, when effective, better serve the needs of the child, restraint and seclusion should be viewed as a last resort. It should be performed only when less restrictive methods have failed or cannot be implemented because of the emergency nature of a situation. Positive behavior intervention can greatly reduce the need for restraint and seclusion while continuing to protect the safety of all children and adults. Restraint and seclusion is for the sole purpose of protecting the student or others from imminent physical harm. Ultimately, it is essential that districts promote the use of a decision-making structure that guides the selection, integration, and implementation of the best evidence-based practices. The policy and rule applies to all Ohio schools beginning in the 2013-2014 school year. This school year, your district must decide if it will indeed use restraint and/or seclusion. If the district decides to use these measures, it must then develop a policy on the use of seclusion and restraint to ensure everyone knows specifically what they can and cannot do. In addition, you must review the seclusion and restraint policy with staff. This includes providing definitions, outlining a framework to make decisions, specifying training requirements, providing alternate strategies and interventions, identifying potential risks, establishing timelines, and specifying reporting and notification requirements. This policy must be published and made available to parents. You can find a sample district policy and sample forms on the Ohio Department of Education website at education.ohio.gov. Search for Policy, PBIS. Or, If you've downloaded the presentation PowerPoint, click on the blue underlined word to access the website materials. PBIS is a prevention-oriented approach to minimizing the need for restraint and seclusion. It is a framework for assisting school personnel in organizing and adopting interventions that enhance academic and social behavioral outcomes for all students. Based upon evidence-based research and experience, PBIS can be customized to maximum the positive outcomes for your students. Ultimately, you know your practices are succeeding when they result in a learning environment that is less reactive, aversive, dangerous and exclusionary, more engaging, responsive, preventative and productive, and addresses classroom management and disciplinary issues. In addition, it improves supports for students whose behaviors require more specialized assistance. More importantly, it maximizes academic and behavioral success for all students. This image represents research findings of a healthy school. It illustrates the idea that 80 to 90% of students are effectively supported when a comprehensive plan and strategies are implemented and sustained throughout all school settings. The universal systems of support are for all students. It's the school's school-wide behavior plan. The correlation between behavioral and academic success is so strong, it's very obvious that systems of support must occur in both the academic and behavioral realms. It's the routines, processes, and goals that are in place which make the plan. A continuous review of the plan is essential to determine if the core instruction or curriculum is getting at least 80 to 90% of students to where they need to be. These systems for strategic intervention include systematic social skills instruction and other behavioral supports, in addition to the universal supports provided to all students. The yellow area on this image represents students who may require more targeted interventions. This may include small social skills group focused on developing friendships. Finally, about 1 to 5% of students in most schools will need intensive academic interventions, as well as intensive behavioral interventions. Components of a positive behavior intervention system include an analysis of school data regarding behavior to identify specific behavior problems and determine the particular needs of the school's children. Modifications of environmental factors that escalate inappropriate behavior to diminish occurrence and reoccurrence of behavioral issues and teach appropriate behaviors to students. Support for the attainment of appropriate behavior to teach and reinforce acceptable conduct. Use of verbal de-escalation to diffuse potentially violent and dangerous behavior, and it is very important that the system includes family involvement. An integral part of a successful system is a purposeful partnership with affected families. A system of positive behavioral intervention and supports includes the essential practices of establishing clearly defined and articulated expectations across all tiers of support and throughout the school. These expectations describe how everyone in the learning community should behave. Directly and sufficiently teaching the expected behaviors by providing explicit instruction. Directly and sufficiently teaching the expected behaviors by providing explicit instruction. This includes establishing various systematic and natural ways for encouraging and recognizing students for desired behavior, and various systematic and natural ways for correcting students demonstrating undesirable behavior. Finally, continuously connecting, bonding, and collaborating with students, families, and other members of the learning community. The Ohio PBIS Network mission is to advocate for adoption and implementation of the PBIS framework in teaching of social competencies and development of safe and effective school environments. Contact the state support team serving schools in your county for the regional education and family consultants, or Michael Petrusek at ODE, who can assist you with PBIS implementation. For more information, visit the Ohio Department of Education's website at education.ohio.gov or go to www.pbisohio.org. Download this PowerPoint at education.ohio.gov to access the live links on this or any slide in this presentation.